From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. Of all the world's animals, humans are the only species that will kill for an abstract ideology rather than for a physical need. In the wake of the World Trade Center attacks on September 11, 2001, U.S. military intervention and media coverage has often centered on the concept of religious extremism. This is typically used as a synonym for militant sects of Islam, such as the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIL. This perception has triggered several large misconceptions about terrorism and religious extremism in general. Most terrorist groups aren't religiously motivated, such as the Tamil Tigers, who are responsible for the majority of suicide bombings. But the religious extremists often get the most attention, and that's no wonder considering that violent, faith-based zealotry is one of the oldest practices in human civilization. Today, these organizations are full-on business interests as well, sometimes even acting at state level. But how did they become so wealthy? Who bankrolls religious extremists? Here's where it gets crazy. U.S. allies. At least, that's the case in the Middle East. As strange as it might sound, growing evidence indicates that numerous religiously motivated terrorist groups are financed in part via donations from countries considered to be U.S. allies, such as Qatar, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. According to Andrew Tabler, a senior fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, this is an open secret. He notes that Kuwait in particular is a major conduit for money to extremist groups in Syria and now Iraq. Often the relationships occur via indirect methods. For example, while Qatar does not directly support Al-Qaeda in Iraq, individuals funnel massive amounts of cash through donations and ancillary organizations. In 2012, Abd al-Rahman bin Umar al-Nuami sent over $2 million to Al-Qaeda every month. For those who believe that U.S. intelligence agencies aren't telling the whole truth about the origin of terrorist groups or U.S. interaction with them, the strange relationship between U.S. allies and religious extremists is often presented as a smoking gun. According to a leaked cable from the State Department, it would be counterproductive for Embassy Doha to engage the kingdom at this time on disrupting financial support of terrorist groups operating in Afghanistan and Pakistan. In other words, the embassy was instructed not to push a U.S. ally to stop funding the same groups the United States was fighting in Afghanistan. The situation continues today with little coverage of these relationships in the media. Is this a case of diplomacy and warfare functioning as two different fronts, complementary yet separate? Or is there something else to the story here? Something they don't want you to know?
Is there an intelligence agency involved with or supporting ISIS in some way? How is ISIS related to the other terrorist faction groups that we're hearing about more often, less often in the news? And third, what do you think is the future of ISIS in the Middle East?